So, League is approaching, and there's like less than 2 weeks until patch notes, and then we're gonna have build guide spam, right? Just 1 week between patch notes and League Start, and I feel like it's a very good time. At least for me, it's a very good time to get a really good overview of builds and mechanics, and kind of make up my mind and do some research, maybe do some testing, just to have a really good idea what is there going into that specific season, especially going into the last week. So I can imagine other people would like to do the same. This is entirely what this will be about. There will be no gameplay. Fair warning. It's just a list. I try to keep it rather short. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, remind you it's going to be very meta heavy as well. So maybe there's like not a single build in there you don't have on your mind yet. Maybe it's just reminding you, I don't know, we have time right now, right? There's nothing to play. So yeah, let's get this going. This is just like what to look out for over the next weeks and have on your mind and already do some research. Just be noted that I have a distinction here per class between starter and endgame, and it's not that deep, right? It's not like a super cut kind of thing. What that means for me, like starters are builds that I would consider really nice for early progression and actually league starting, getting your watchstones and all kind of stuff. They can be endgame builds, or some of them scale super well into endgame, but they can be really well started. Endgame builds, on the other hand, are typically either you can just not start them at all, or they are really expensive to even get going, or I would just not consider starting them ever. So yeah, it's not that deep of a distinction, right? Either they can be both, and that's fine. It's just like to make the list a little bit different, but in my opinion, you would have a starter and then later on swap into an endgame build on the same character, or maybe even ascendancy switch, or maybe just make a completely new character for that. And that's my distinction there. There's no particular order in these at all. If anything is not on the list, it implies nothing. It doesn't mean it's bad, it doesn't mean I don't like it, it's just nothing I have like on my watch list right now. For example, I don't know, let's take Tornado Shot. There's no Tornado Shot because I just don't consider Tornado Shot ever. Not because it's a bad build, it's great, it's amazing, but it's not for me. Which also brings us to, it's highly opinionated. It's just my very personal opinion. And that's it, minus a few things I don't really want to mention because they are too far out and I don't want to bait anybody into that. This is supposed to be a base for your very own research, right? It's just a list, they're not even links to guides. We're going to do that later in the recommendation thing, and that is probably after patch notes, right? There I'm super happy to share any material I have on anything that I would actually recommend somebody playing, but that has to wait for patch notes because stuff might change and I don't want to put too much work into collecting and refining some materials just for patch notes to destroy absolutely everything. Also means, obviously, right, now I have no idea what the patch notes bring, so this is just like 3.22 based stuff. So yeah, let's get this going. On a Templar and their starters, obviously Pox RF, all-time favorite, really cool, such a smooth starter. You can't go wrong with that. There's also the RF Cold Dot ones, also Inquisitors. It's basically a Cold Dot Inquisitor with RF slapped on top of that. I made a recent video on that. I really like that one. It was very smooth, kind of cool. You have the Cold Dot Hierophants, not a favorite of many, right? It sounds weird, it sounds so weak, but it's so smooth to play. So if you want something very relaxing and easy and even super SSF friendly, it's actually fine. It's just a really fine build. I really like that one. Armor Brand Recall Hierophant is probably the fastest of all of these, I could imagine. Maybe rivaled by Cold Dot, but it's a very good build. Very nice for super fast progression, also very SSF friendly for quite some time. And yeah, really good starters here. In this case, in terms of endgame, the mana stackers. Basically, both of these are mana stackers. They are Hierophants. That's basically 1 mana left, has the authority, probably has like multiple PhDs and mana builds, and Both of them are insanely good. They are very delve capable as well. Mana Bond is the one with Mjolnir, and later, if you want to, you could have a Squire and stuff. You could also go from one of the starters into a Mana Bond and then into a Mana Forge, because that one tends to be a bit more expensive, I would say. So you have like a triple transition, right? Because, I mean, transitions are really important for me. So you start here and then you go into a Mana Bond and then maybe the Mana Forged Arrows one. They share a bunch of gear and concepts, so that's kind of cool. Incredibly powerful builds, very complicated, can get extremely expensive, but very fun concept to learn and play around. There's Armor Brand, Wrath Pit. It's a unique shield you can look up, and there is from Raze, the red person, Raze QT, and Dan. They basically made, a while back actually, they made like a build, or maybe Dan made it and Raze did something with it. I don't know. But there's some content out there for that stuff, and that looked pretty cool, very tanky, super hardcore stuff. That one looks like a really nice endgame build. And we also have the Eye of Winter Brander. That's basically a Nimbus build where you have Arcanist brands, and then they put out Eye of Winters, and they put out 1 billion projectiles, and they all return, and it's a really interesting build. Very, very cool. And melts Ubers, basically. So, really cool. Endgame build, obviously also kind of expensive. I mean, it has a Nimbus, so here we go. On the Witch, Cold Dot Elementalist, it's just so smooth. It's really nice, very relaxing, SSF friendly, like crazy. Yeah, can't go wrong with that one. We have Detonate Dead Ignite. Definitely not a favorite of many either, but it's probably the strongest SSF progression build that exists. Consistently winning any races, anything out there. So really good build. Can get you so far. Also on a like semi SSF thing. Obviously, all we're talking about here is in context of softcore trade, but if you don't like early trading and you just want to progress on your own, Detonate Dead Ignite is just incredibly good. 2-button build, right? Be a little bit careful with that. Also a lot of speedrun content on that you can look up, it's nice. We have the Frostblink Ignite ones. Favorite of many, very smooth as well. There's quite some content on those as well. Yeah, also a great progression build. In that case, for starters, and towards the end game, what I really like there is still the Art of Elementalist, one of my favorite builds of all time. It's more of a mapper, and you would need to do a bit more research to make it more boss viable. It's mostly a mapper with the Explodey Flask. I forgot how it's called. The one that explodes, the one that Steel Mage made or brought into this game. Incredibly cool mapper. Makes so much fun. I have a video on that one as well, so it looks really cool. They are the Blade Vortex Occultists, obviously. It's kind of an all-time favorite as well. Not so much of myself, and I've only played very weak versions of it so far, and would probably always favor the RF Elementalist over that, but it's definitely an option, really cool. There's the super controversial EK Ignite, right? That's Ethereal Knives Ignite, that I don't know, gets a lot of criticism often for investment compared to performance, but I'm more on the you're supposed to have fun with this kind of side, and if you like the playstyle, you like how it looks, then yeah, it's an absolutely amazing build, really cool. And the Maw of Mischief Elementalist, they're kind of, the stronger DD Ignite, I guess. Also, a lot of people don't really like this one, but do your own research on those and how it actually works. It's a very, very, very powerful build towards like uber bossing, because I mean DD Ignite can do that, but there's also like a skill factor in that. So probably, right, if you're not that good at the game and you're not Ben, then maybe you want to look into this. If you like the DD Ignite playstyle, then yeah, that probably makes a lot of sense. Good old Ranger. I mean, basically on my side, you start Peacock and then you do one of these, right? I mean, that's like starter into starter. That's like leveling Peacock, get to 80, 85, something like that, and then swap into either the Exsanguinate ones. You can self-cast that. There's also like the extension of that with Reap, right? So you can do that. It's kind of cool. It's not my favorite just because of how weird the self-cast feels to me until cast speed, and even then it's kind of a little bit odd, but cool. Infernal Knives is getting quite a bunch of attention right now, and a poison thing. I just made recently a little bit of a video on that. Feels really good, very zoomy. Really liking that one. Let's see what comes out of that. Also has incredible endgame versions of that, like really late game versions, super tanky and easily dot cap in endgame context then, right? But so yeah, great starter, I believe. The Doom thing, right? Impending Doom, Vixen, I believe it's called, the gloves. Favorite of many people, looks really cool with these circles going off, and yeah, very fun build. There's also the Stormburst ones. That's kind of an alternative to Exsanguinate. So it's like these spellcasty poison builds. It hits a lot. And that one also is again in the end game. It's like the only one that's like really doubled. Because I believe there is like a progression heavy version of that. And it has not too much to do with the or if anything to do with the endgame version of that. So this is basically be a Pathfinder and do stuff, essentially. That's like, I don't know how I see this. And you start with Peaconk. Super crazy starters. Poison, very OP. Still, and will probably be nerfed again. So keep that in mind. They're nerfing Poison every league, so there we go there. Towards endgame, there are these Eye of Winter brands. Dudes, I haven't looked too much into it yet, but I think they're tattoo reliant. So they might be dead, right? So I'm not entirely sure if you can solve around that, if you want to solve around that. If that is still a thing, maybe you need to look into how tattoo reliant they actually are. So it might be dead, might not even exist, but there should be a mine version as well, right? You can be a miner. I've winter miner with like elemental stuff. Isn't that a thing? It's probably a thing. It must be, basically. Then we have the Molten Strike Pathfinders. This is like Delve related again. Like these two are Delve builds, like these super crazy tanky Delve builds. Can go super deep. And yeah, really cool endgame build. Very hit and leech reliant, obviously. And then we have the Stormburst ones. There's also really deep Delve builds with Stormburst. Those are kind of interesting. So that's different than a Stormburst up here. There's like the Delve version. Very expensive, but very interesting in my opinion. And they are the Forbidden Rite Pathfinders. That one of the things also I believe that is not really worth it in terms of investment, is it? But it looks really cool. Right, like Forbidden Rite is such a weird spell. It's very powerful, but it hits yourself, and circumventing all these problems is a really fun experience, I believe. And it looks so cool because you have these purple things going everywhere. I wish they could be cats. There should be an empty X, like for Soul Rend or how it's called, and makes it into cats. There should be one for Forbidden Rite as well. So you have cats flying everywhere. That would be. That's my hope for the league, to be fair. If that happens, I'm probably going to play this at some point, at least. Towards Shadow, it's a little thinner in this direction here. I feel like currently the Pyroclast Miners and also the Spark Trickster are somewhat interesting. Pyroclast Miners also look really cool. It's a pre-thing to the Hexblast anyway, I believe, right? That's what you do? I believe that's what you would do. You go Pyroclast first and then Hexblast later. The Spark one obviously can also be heavily scaled into endgame, but might also be a really nice starter. Feels pretty good and has some interesting defenses there. So yeah, kind of liking. If you want to be Trickster, that would be my thing. If you also like a Spark, and then obviously as an endgame thing, the Hexblast Miners are really cool. Really liking them. Also like the fact, I mean, also looks cool. Again, purple stuff. Apparently I like purple stuff, but it looks really cool because there's this beam coming from top. It can be scaled incredibly high, and you don't need to aim. Like, mines are aiming for you, and that is it's a huge benefit actually. I don't think people should underestimate how important this is to some other people. Maybe not to everybody, but yeah, really cool playstyle. Really liking that, and even though it's mines, probably very cool one. Pastoran, by the way, is probably the one you should look out for, at least for a very comfy, well-rounded version of that. In terms of Duelist, I mean, I don't know, there's explosive arrow champion, the explosive arrow ballista one. Super SSF friendly, super comfy, very tanky. Yeah, easy build to get a duelist up. And there's also obviously a corrupting fever champion, and that should have reap as well, right? Was it just the X-Wing one? I don't know. Probably also has a reap kind of situation there going. Yeah, really fast progression as well, very brutal, and very good mapper. Probably one of the strongest mappers and very fast mappers, like early on. Really nice one. I don't have any endgame builds for this, honestly. I mean, you can obviously scale these, that's fine, but I don't have any, to me, interesting super endgame builds on the duelist right now. Towards Marauder, obviously, POXRF, Juggernaut, Bone Shatter, Juggernaut. I mean, they are very well-known things. Can also, especially Bone Shatter, can scale super, super far. There's also the RF Chieftain. That one is like a... It's also a kind of comparatively weak build, right? But it's so easy to put together. So yeah, I don't know. I just really like it. Like how it feels, how easy it is. Really cool one. Side note on Jug, if the Affliction League, and I obviously don't know, has to do with like cursing you and doing bad things to you constantly, then being a Juggernaut or a Trickster actually for that, or somehow mitigating any like slow or whatever might be really cool. So yeah, depending on how the league looks, it might be nice to be a Trickster or a Juggernaut, or somehow negating these like I can't move and make everything terrible things. Towards endgame for Marauder, the only one I find really interesting is this meme. It's not a meme, it's like really strong, but armor stackers. And there's like this armor stacker chieftain kind of thing, right? So where you only stack the fire res, and there's stats basically multiplying each other and double dipping stuff going on. I'm not entirely sure how exactly they work, but that's a really interesting endgame build. Very expensive as well. It can also probably be a pretty good Delver, I guess. That could work as well. And there will be, I promise you, there will be a lot of Delve content coming your way. If you haven't noticed, there's a lot of people with a lot of attention are looking deeply into Delve. I also expect the mana stackers to get some very good guides this league, because they got more and more attention, and also because Delve got attention. So it might be really cool content coming your way towards the mana stackers, and hopefully don't get nerfed, even though the mana forged arrow stuff, there was a lot last league, so that might happen. So to close this off, and not make it any longer, here are my current candidates that I'm mostly interested in right now is starting armor, get on brand recall, going into Mana Bond, going into Mana Forge. That is very Delve related, quite interesting, because these two are so interesting builds. I just feel like they're so complicated, and but once you get the basics, I feel like they're pretty good. Same thing with Armor Recall. It also can go into Eye of Winter brands, if in case I feel like that, so I can do that. For Poisonous Concoction, obviously Pathfinder into whatever there is. Gem Poison is OP, Pathfinder is OP, can do that stuff. And a last one on a bitch, if I feel like playing a bitch, RF Elementalist, and then, or maybe like a bossing thing, depending on how I feel, but like a DD Ignite start. It seems pretty cool to me. I kind of like that playstyle. I like this not trading early. So yeah, one of these three is mostly leaning towards Pathfinder right now, or this one. Depends a bit on preparation now. So yeah, bye.